which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you're listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan on iTunes, iHeart, etc. Wherever you're listening, I am there. If you miss the show live and don't want to pay for no podcast subs, head on over to my YouTube channel, VRL Drew Duncan, The Real Drew Duncan, where I do post entire episodes for free. Guys, plenty to get to today. Obviously, it is Friday, so that means our MMA insider, Austin Ford, is going to be in the building with us as well. Plenty to get to with MMA, from Clarissa Shields all the way to King Ryan calling out Sean O'Malley, of all people. And, of course, later on today, at top of hour number 2, we are going to have Emmanuel Rivera, who is going to be joining us all the way from Oklahoma City. He is the host of Fight Night with E-Man on the Sports Animal in Oklahoma City. In the meantime, my man, Austin Ford, hanging out with us in the building. Austin, thank you so much for joining the program again, my man.
Thank you, and thank goodness it's Friday.
Man, I know that's right. I know, and here's the thing: you're actually home today, my man. That's good. Normally, you're on the road right now, coming from Texas, right?
That's right. That's right. I'm comfortably with my family. That's where I want to be. So,
my man got his bronze on. Brody woke up when I called him this morning, man. All right, we're gonna get into this. Let's dive right into it, my man. Clarissa Shields. Here is a quote from her.
These girls can't beat me, and I think of MMA as a street fight.
Yeah.
I'm a boxer, don't get me wrong, but I was a dog in street fighting too before I started boxing. So now that I'm in MMA, people think it's so different. Yeah, it's different because you gotta learn the techniques and stuff. But at the end of the day, you gotta be a dog. Are you a dog or not? That's why.
Clarissa Shields stating that she is a dog. She treats MMA like a street fight. You know, for me, Austin, MMA fighters have worked tirelessly to get rid of the stigma that it's a street fight. Here comes in Clarissa Shields as a boxer going, I treat it like a street fight. I was a dog in street fighting, so that's why I'm good at this. Do you think that's an insult to MMA fighters, the direction she's taken?
I guess you could take it as an insult to MMA, but what it really is kind of shows a bit of delusion on her part. You know, I don't think MMA is offended, but she is definitely somewhat disrespectful. Yes, because she's a great boxer. She's tough. She's big and strong and fast. But just like when we saw in the DeSantis fight, she got her guard passed and mounted with ease, and she got taken down easily. When she starts running into some higher level females, she'll get taken down and pounded out. Now, she's going to be tough on the ground. She's trying to punch off of her back. She looks like an amateur MMA fighter to me. You know, she looked a little gun shy, worried about the takedown, but also DeSantis was terrified of her power, and rightfully so. But she did not look like a seasoned future champion in my eyes at all.
You know, and the thing is I know that you've had guys that you've trained that have gone on to Bellator. Bellator for a long time was seen basically as a retirement village from guys who were no longer in the UFC. I think all the way back to even the Royce Gracie, Ken Shamrock fight when they met for the third time. That was a Bellator thing. Now we've got this going on with Clarissa Shields. Do you think Bellator is still desperate, even though they've been bought out by PFL, by inviting the likes of Clarissa Shields and some of these, quote, over-the-hill MMA fighters into their league?
I don't think so, no. Bellator is a prominent promotion. We just recently saw PFL versus Bellator,
right?
And Bellator
all the
won
belts.
most of those fights,
yeah,
right. Except for Ryan Bader,
right?
He got knocked out right away. But, like we talked about last time, PFL, the deal, I'm not sure what's going on. But to just, because I like Bellator. I really do.
Same.
There's high-level fights, and they pay good money. And, yes, leaving the UFC and going, you know what, UFC, middle finger to you, I'm going to go fight over here, and to have a chance at success. That is, we need that. We need some variety at the highest level of MMA. And then here comes PFL, waving around some Saudi money, I guess. Let's see what you got. But to just trash the Bellator name and just, we're going with PFL now, who used to be World Series of Fighting. It's very different with the tournament style. They, to me, are, AAA, AAA baseball. It's the farm league. The Bellator is above PFL. But now, it looks like they've equalized that. So we'll see. We really haven't seen too many retired fighters go over to Bellator since like Czech Congo, and Czech Congo didn't do great over there. So, but it is another league, another place where we can see some high production, high quality mixed martial arts. And I love Bellator.
Well, and I think that Dana White honestly has a lot to do with the perception of Bellator, but obviously he's got to do what he's got to do to keep UFC at the forefront. I think for me, though, look, it was unique to a lot of people what they did on Saturday with the Bellator versus PFL for all those belts. And I get what they were doing. They were, making it to where they were unifying in a lot of cases, right? But I'm just old enough to remember the WWE Invasion storyline when they bought out WCW and the ECW and WCW were supposedly invading the WWE. And I just kind of thought, this is, to me, what they're doing. And let's not forget that, if I remember correctly, old boy has also got his hand in AEW. So it makes sense to me that he would remember that and kind of go with that thing. I don't know. I think they're just making too many mistakes, if you ask me, right off the rip, and Bader and apparently Ngannou are going to get it on now, right? So, because Francis said, I'm going to fight the winner of that fight, and I think Bellator is going to let it happen. I mean, do you think it's a good look for Francis and Bader right off the rip?
Well, wait, Bader got knocked out, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yes, I do think that fight will happen. And we know what's going to happen. I mean, that's two guys with a lot of power, and I think Ngannou gets it done because he's supposed to. And I think that PFL and Bellator, gosh, what do we call them now? Bellator or BFL?
Yeah, they haven't even come up with a name yet, bro. I mean, seriously. Right. At least the XFL and the USFL, when they merge together, they're now the UFL. So at least we know what to call them, right? So I just that's another thing. Like, I don't think they know who they are right now. And Bellator for the longest, MVP was really making a lot of headwaves until Douglas Lima chin checked him.
Yep.
and I felt like that was kind of like, okay, well, he put that to bed, because what has MVP done since? And I just feel like Bellator has always struggled to kind of get their own identity. And, like we've talked about before, they started the kickboxing thing, but then they went away from it. I feel like they didn't maybe give it enough chances. There's just so many mistakes to me. And I think UFC just stays who they are. They're consistent, at least, in who they are, and they know who they are. And I think that's the difference between the two brands.
Yes, Bellator, they're trying to find their identity, but I think they had found their identity. And PFL is just, they brought that new airless ball to play, and so they're allowed to play because they have the expensive ball. And no, it's a sad situation because I think they had solidified their place as a number 2,
right? And
they had proven themselves. And it's okay to be a silver medalist, there can only be one king, and the UFC is king. And Bellator even sent Eddie Alvarez over to the UFC and fought Conor McGregor. Bellator sent Michael Chandler over, and he's doing great, so, their relevance is there. And then they just sold out, for what? For money? And now they're kind of in limbo. Where's the next fight going to be? My guy Lucas Brennan, supposed to fight in April, but he fought. His opponent fought on that night and won. So, are we going to get a quick turnaround? Where is that fight going to be? Is PFL going to be involved? It's just a mess, like you said. They don't have an identity, and that doesn't feel good. That doesn't feel good.
Real quick here to finish up on Bellator, did you happen to get a look at Muhammad Ali's grandson?
Yeah, definitely. He's tough. It's in their blood.
Well, I felt like he certainly had the reach, and he definitely threw like him because Ali more to me always kind of threw with his shoulders. Especially when he'd flick that jab out at you. I mean, it just flick of the wrist, and it was just there. So I think I saw a little bit of that, but we're talking to Austin Ford. He is our MMA insider. We are live. The show is fired up, and I am your host, Drew Duncan. Have you seen King Ryan, Austin Ford, calling out Sean O'Malley? He claims that he's been sending Dana White text, that he wants to see him in the octagon and all this stuff. Does King Ryan have any shot whatsoever, number one, making this fight happen, and number two, not absolutely getting his head kicked in if he decides to fight O'Malley?
Ryan Garcia cannot even come close to competing with a Sean O'Malley in the cage. It cannot even close. But then again, Sean O'Malley, he better not go box Ryan Garcia. He better not. And get embarrassed. And Sean O'Malley does have the skills to do what Conor did to Floyd Mayweather. That's true. But I highly recommend get Ryan Garcia in the cage. Don't go to the ring. Don't go into the ring. But Ryan Garcia, he's coming off of that loss where it is kind of embarrassing to be, whatever and you call yourself King Garcia, you're at that highest level of boxing, and then you get knocked down. You get knocked off that pedestal. So he's kind of reaching at this point. What happens if he loses in boxing again for a second time? He's looking to cross over now. He's looking to make a big money fight. And, I don't blame him, and I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, first of all, the thing with him and Devin Haney, to me, just kind of goes into what he's been doing with calling out Sean O'Malley. Look, there's been a lot of chatter among old school athletes that the new school athlete is strictly clout chasing. And I'm seeing that more and more in combat sports. Do you think combat sports is officially a fad right now?
Yes. And what it is, they're trying to sell fights for the wrong reasons. Back in the day, you sold a fight to get more pay-per-views, and then your money went up. But these guys, are they actually putting more eyes on the sport, more asses in the seats, or are they, like you said, just clout chasing? And it just puts these guys in a bad character. not like a heel, somebody that you love to hate or a villain, just a kind of dirtbag. You know, we see it with Kobe Covington. You know, I love to see a supreme confidence and like someone call out their shot, like Connor. He was amazing at it. You know, it was almost as like Mystic Mac. You know, he predicted these things, and he did it with hard work and, you know, being a mental giant. I like that style. But now that's the old Connor. The new Connor, you know, it's like, okay, I'm ready to look past him. But Ryan Garcia, I see kind of arrogance. You know, if you ever listen to De La Hoya, you know, talk nowadays, you're like, man, De La Hoya, you know how much stuff is out about him. Like, where's a little bit of humility? You know, so as a fad of clout chasing and talking smack and trying to become a character, you know, I hope it does go away, as most fads do.
Well, it's all this fake beef, you know, like this stuff with King Ryan and Devin Haney as an easy example. And I think, you know, there was a time because, you know, I've asked fight promoters in the past before about, look, how do you get the next Muhammad Ali? How do you get the next McGregor? And, you know, nobody seems to have an answer. For me, the answer is real simple. It's authenticity. Muhammad Ali was legitimately being himself. That's who he was. He wasn't BSing anybody, and he brought that culture, his culture, to the forefront. People were able to really see it on a mass scale for the first time. With Conor McGregor, that's just who he was. He just legitimately was like that. And I think that we look at the Devin Haney's and all these YouTube fighters and Jake and his other brother and all, you know, what we're seeing is a bunch of guys, you know, like when one of the Paul brothers fought Tyron Woodley, and Woodley took exception to it. He's like, look, man, you are mimicking my culture, bro, and you're being disrespectful. And I don't think any of this is a movement for the culture. I think all of this, to me, is a setback if it's anything else, because people are using the culture to get to where they want to go, but now they're just making a mockery of not only the culture, but really, to me, combat sports in general, Austin.
I agree. And, you know, times have changed. You know, if you look at what's allowed, and I see it most prevalent in like 7-on-7 football with the guys, they flip the ball in the face. It's all about these celebrations. You know, they've thrown character out the window, and that's a generation thing. As far as, and it's not that the kids have changed or these young men have changed. It's the culture that have changed. Of course, they're, like you said, clout chasing, because that is the norm now. That's what is to be done. I don't like it. I don't really want to be any part of it. And any fighter of mine, and I will have a handful of guys make that run in 2024 and 2025. I will be advising, hey, show some humility, show some character. Let's be a Poirier, you know. Let's be a Michael Chandler. Let's not be a Colby Covington. Let's not be a Devin Haney. Let's not be, you know, even Mayweather. You know, Mayweather could back it up, but he comes off as a D. You know, I'm just, he's annoying to me. You know, yeah, and he is a great fighter. A great fighter and a great businessman. He's got the money. He's got the name. He's got a legacy. He's a legend. But I'm just going off of, would I want to hang out with the guy? Hell no.
I feel like I'd probably get in trouble kicking to a Mayweather, Brody. Seriously.
Yeah. But you see Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Adrian Broner. It's like, are you all trying to be the same guy?
Exactly.
You know, just win fights, sell the fight, yes, but you know, when I think of it like Trump, you know, Trump wins those debates. He is the more clever, but he's a jerk about it. You know what I mean? I want to see clever wordplay with character, because that's how you were, whether you fought or not. That's just who you are. And if you're a quiet guy like Usman, he tried his best to get in there and jaw back and forth with Colby Covington, but that just wasn't him. And so that's why Colby calls him Marty Snoozman. You know, and then it just becomes a back and forth and gets Usman out of his character. But you can tell that Usman's out of his character, so that's even authentic to get him out of his character. But Colby Covington, these other guys, they're pressing. And I have even heard that, and this was a couple of years ago, that Colby Covington is actually a nice guy. And he's doing all of this on purpose to create a character to be a heel. But he's actually a nice guy. But then fast forward to now, you can't pretend that for too long, because you end up becoming a jerk. It's the truth. You know, it's like going into prison. You know, you better put your game face on, because it's a different life in there. And when you come out, who are you going to be? You know, you can't go full retard. Oops, I shouldn't have said that. But never go full. You know. So,
well, I mean, you were quoting a movie, so I mean, I think we've all seen Tropic Thunder, man. You know, come on, bro. I think you'll be okay, man. You'll be all right. You'll be all right.
I don't want to get canceled for saying that.
I mean,
R word. I'm old. I'm old. Blame it on my gray hair.
Well, and everything that, I mean, back then, everything was that to us. I mean, we would just say it willy nilly. You know, we didn't mean nothing by it. You know, but I mean, things progress and they move on, and people view things differently. But it's fine, bro. But regardless, you know, I think of another really great example is Amanda Nunes. I mean, she's not one for the talk at all. You know what I mean? She and thing is, you know, people forget her career really didn't start off all that great, but she came back and had a phenomenal career, and she did it all while being quiet, because at first she was a little mouthy, but she got it handed to her a few times, and it silenced her. But she went back to the drawing board and just started winning fights. Now she's the GOAT, really.
Absolutely. You know, and she is super nice.
Yeah.
Right? And the most violent woman we've ever seen. So I like that combination. And we keep coming back to this word authentic. She just is herself.
Right.
You know? I even love the fact that they don't make a big deal about her sexual preference. Right?
I mean, who cares? Can you fight or not? You know what I mean?
Who cares?
I mean, seriously, can you fight or not, bro? That's all I give a damn about.
And you should be allowed to bring your child into the cage and have your wife there. Yes, I love that, and I love that MMA and the UFC don't make a big deal out of it, because it's not a big deal. So, really, really a big fan of Amanda Nunes for sure.
Why does the NFL feel the need to make everything a big deal? I mean, really, what do you think? Because look, man, and I don't want to get into it, but what I'm saying is every time somebody announces that they have a certain sexual preference in the NFL feels it necessary to go and blast it to the world. You know, the whole kneeling thing, that wasn't a problem in college football. Like, it was never advertised, but the NFL felt the need to give us literally statistics on how many people took a knee and how many did it. Now, I don't give a damn if anybody kneels or not. That's my thing. What I'm saying is they felt the need to publicize all this stuff, but at the collegiate level, we didn't see any of this. And I personally don't get it, because MMA, boxing, I mean, nobody else seems to have these problems but the NFL.
Man, did you see there's a meme going around that says, you know, all you people that are hating on Taylor Swift, you're supposed to be not watching football since Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
You know, all those people are still watching. They're still watching.
Peeking in on their favorite team.
Yeah.
I'm just here to check and see how the Bengals are doing. I haven't watched all 10 games this season. I don't know nothing about nothing. By the way, did you see where they traded for? Yeah. No, you don't know nothing, do you, amigo? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's gone to, you know, that and Kaepernick won in my eyes because the league did change. They speak for racial equality. They're out, right? So I think that's a good thing, and he brought that to the surface, and the NFL complied.
Well, he won the lawsuit. You know, look, as far as the kneeling thing goes, I've always said I don't give a damn. You know what I mean? And I tell people all the time that if you don't want to see people kneeling for the national anthem, then I better not see you wiping your mouth with napkins that had the American flag on it. I better not see you wearing underwear that had the American flag on it. I better not see you wearing a T-shirt and getting it all dirty. I want to see that flag up at the correct time, down at the correct time, folded, properly put away. You know what I mean? Because people just leave that flag out all night, all day, any type of weather, rain, hail, sleet, snow, don't matter. It's out there, which is not only wrong, but it's illegal technically. Right? So for anybody who's worried about, well, I kneel for Jesus and I stand for the anthem. Well, I got news for you. Both were about freedom of speech. Okay? So, you know, now I've always said whether or not Kaepernick is the guy to lead that movement, I don't know. What I do know is this, is that Richard Sherman said a lot of the same things and he still had a job in the NFL. You know?
Yes. I'm not a Richard Sherman fan.
Really?
I'd rather watch someone else. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as like him being on the show with Skip Bayless, I mean, but you know, to be fair, Richard, I think has just waited his whole life to go after Skip, man. I mean, he can't wait. Even, you know, even when Skip isn't shouting, Richard will stop him and say, hey man, stop yelling at me. Like he's just, at this point, he's clearly just fucking with Skip Bayless. I mean, seriously, that is at this point, that's all he's doing. That's his entire purpose for living, I think, right now, is to just mess with Skip Bayless. I don't think he gives a damn about anything else, if I'm being legit. Drew Duncan, the show's fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart, etc. Wherever you're listening, I am there. If you miss the show live, don't want to do any podcast subs, head on over to my YouTube channel, my man. I do post entire episodes for free. The Real Drew Duncan, the RL. Drew Duncan, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. Do not forget, at the top of hour number 2, joining us from Oklahoma City, the host of Fight Night with E-Man, Emmanuel Rivera, joins us from the Sports Animal in Oklahoma City. In the meantime, it is Friday, and that means our MMA insider, Austin Ford, is still kicking it with us live. Austin, thank you again for taking so much time with us every single Friday, my man. I really do appreciate it.
Man, it's an honor. It's become one of my favorite things I look forward in the week. You know, so I love doing this with you, man, and I appreciate you.
Absolutely, 100. All right, really quick here. Look, there are rumors circulating that John Jones is going to fight Miocic coming up this summer. Do you believe the rumors? Do you think Dana White is working hard to put this thing together? Do you think that fight's actually going to happen? Let's remind everybody that it was canceled back in November of 2023 because of the injuries for John Jones. But look, man, I see John Jones right now as the guy who's enjoying kicking it a whole hell of a lot. Not that he's never before, but I think the longer he's away from MMA, the more comfortable he becomes with not training. What say you?
You know, I'm kind of just ready for him to go away at this point. And I'm not, you know, and it's either S or get off the pot.
Right.
You know, like And is that really a big, exciting fight? Stipe versus John Jones? I mean, no. You know the fight that we want to see. There's only one. We want to see John Jones versus Francis Ngannou. And, other than that, next. I like these Hawaiian and Aussie fighters, the Tafa brothers. I like those guys. I'm ready for a whole new top dog, and come on back and fight, John. But let's get on with it. Let's get on with it. He is the greatest of all time. He is the best fighter that we've ever seen, and he's just a winner, right? He's not exciting all the time, but you're a Hall of Famer. You're the GOAT, yes. But then here we are back at two. It's annoying. It's not pleasing to me. He's not a people's champion. At first he was a nice guy, well-spoken, but some of the stuff that this guy's done outside of fighting, I wouldn't want to hang out with that guy. Well, I wouldn't want my mom to know I'm hanging out with that guy.
What'd you do last night? I just kind of stayed in bed, really nothing much. Don't bother if you see anything on the news about me, Don't worry about that, Ma. I tell you, it's all BS, Ma. And my mom's 5'2", but I got to tell you, I'm more afraid of her than I think I would be of John Jones. I'm just letting you know right now. And
my mom brings it the same way.
Well, and here's the thing. Supposedly Dana White is also putting pressure on the winner of that fight to take on Aspinall. But predicated upon Aspinall's last fight, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, okay, this is what we just saw. Granted, he's undefeated, but I don't really know that if he, moving up is going to be a thing for him or whatever the case may be. But again, this goes back to what we were talking about last weekend to me, and that is lightweight and heavyweight. It doesn't seem to have a direction right now. And I know that you talked about the new guys coming up, but of all the new guys that are coming up, do you think there's anybody out there that can legitimately compete with either Stipe Miocic or John Jones?
Stipe, yes. John Jones, no. Unfortunately, and that's why I say I'm ready for him to either let's get back to dominating and putting a stamp on the end of your career, or just move on. I bet you his entire identity is tied up into fighting. What is he going to do after fighting? I don't think he has a clue. He can't just get high and chase women. We know where that road ends.
Right.
You got to find something else. You are not fighting. It's what you do, and what you are is what you're going to end up with after fighting. So you better have something. You better find something. That I don't think he has. I think it's in the bottom of a little bag or the bottom of a bottle, and the longer he's out, like you said, the more diminished his body is getting. And he is the Michael Irvin of the UFC. He can perform after a hard night of partying, but he's going to lose. If you fight long enough, you're going to lose. If you disrespect the game is going to humble you, because the game is undefeated, and as is Father Time, as is drug abuse, all undefeated, and he's fighting them all. So, come on back, John. Let's get you a few more fights. Otherwise, and just find something else, and hopefully it's something good. Because I know he doesn't claim to be a role model, but he's going to be the greatest of all time forever. So how about you clean your act up a little bit and start actually being a role model.
Well, and to me, this is symptomatic of an even bigger issue within the UFC, and that is we're talking about John Jones literally holding up an entire division right now, and then of course, along with that, you've always got these interim champions in the UFC. We're always waiting on belts to be unified. Conor McGregor did the same thing. He literally held up two divisions at one point, so that way he could go and fight Mayweather, and then he came back, and that was a whole disaster. So how do we start getting this cleaned up, and why does Dana White seem to let some of the top guys just kind of do whatever the hell they want? I mean, look, I had Scott Jones, who's a fight promoter for Husky Fat, the people that I called the fight for the pay-per-view on Saturday, and he was talking about this. He goes, look, John Jones has got him by the balls, and that's kind of all there is to it. At what point does Dana White go, no more? He just seems to never have control of his top guys.
Well, Conor McGregor said it best. The champ does what the champ wants.
Right.
And I don't mind it, but when you have somebody, and John Jones and Conor are this way, all they have to do is show up, and you make a whole lot more money. So for the money, you keep those guys happy. You keep them happy. And we're sitting here talking about it right now. So is he relevant still? Yeah. Is he holding up the division? Yeah. Are we sick of waiting around as MMA fans? Yeah. Let's go. But, it's the business. It's the fight business. It's the fight game. And it's the power is in the hands of who it should be, and that is the person in the cage, the man in the arena. That's who should have the power, not Dana White. So whether he's yielding that power to John Jones and to Conor McGregor, to the champs do what they want, or he has no choice, I like the way that's set up. But let's get some champs in there that, like Adesanya, who wants to fight frequently. He wants to defend the belt. He wants to fight the best.
Right.
He's a humble guy. He's an inspiring guy. He's a cocky guy, rightfully so. And he's the people's champ to me. I love Adesanya. The way he lost to Pereira, but then comes back and beats him, and then puts 3 arrows in him. I mean, this is exciting. This is what I love to see. So more Adesanya's, less John Jones's.
Well, and it's crazy because with all those yeahs that you had, it's insane to think that every one of them also has layers because, like you said, we're tired of waiting. There's many layers to why we're waiting. Is he the GOAT? Yeah, there's a lot of layers to him being the GOAT. Is he holding up a division? Yeah, there's a lot of layers to why or how he's holding up a division. It's just insane, all the in-between stuff that is in there, and it just seems like there's more and more gray area in MMA. It is what it is. And moving along here really quick, Jorge Masvidal, man alive, he went absolute ham on Ariel Helwani's show about Chael Sonnen, and he said that Chael Sonnen was a cheater and that he would love to knock out his orbital socket, and he just went in because he was talking about, he found out all these PEDs and all this stuff in him. Number one, is there any validity to the claims from Jorge Masvidal? And number two, is Jorge Masvidal that bitter retired fighter that just doesn't have him in it anymore? And so he's just running around now, running his mouth to everybody. I love Jorge, by the way. I really do. I think he's a great fighter, really underrated, but Austin's opinion is bigger than mine to me. So what do you think?
So, one, did Chael Sonnen use PEDs? Let's take it a little bit deeper, and were PEDs being used in the when Chael Sonnen was fighting? The answer is yes. Does Chael Sonnen seem like a guy that would, if they're doing it, I'm doing it? Yes. And also, Chael Sonnen is a very intelligent man. However, he's a heel, and he's put on a show so much that I can't tell if it's
real or not.
If it's the American, I can't tell anymore. So
yeah.
I'm not going to assume that he's being his authentic self. I'm going to assume he's being a heel. So I really don't trust his character, and I don't mean what kind of person he is. I mean the character he's playing and portraying. I don't trust that guy. So I wouldn't put it past him for him using PEDs. Certainly, I don't think he's ever come out and said it. But he is the type of guy that if you ask him that straight up, he's not going to say, absolutely not. I never did performance-enhancing drugs. He will talk his way around it and leave you, wondering, like, what did you just say?
Right.
Huh. And as far as Masvidal, gosh, you talk about a legend. I remember watching Masvidal on YouTube.
The backyard brawls, man.
Yeah, I mean, I vividly remember. And then you see him in the UFC, and gosh, one of the best moments in MMA history was he ran across the cage and kneed. Gosh, I can't even think of his name. Ben Askren. I mean, he kneed him in the head and knocked him out. That was one of the. I think that might be my top. Well, and Conor McGregor also, but I hated seeing Masvidal at the end of his career. I hated seeing that, because the game evolved beyond his skill set.
Right.
So as he goes in and tries to do what he's always done, and it worked, was sustained for a long time. But as soon as the calf kick and the blending of the wrestling and the striking, as soon as that moved beyond Masvidal, he's an old dog and it's tough to teach an old dog new tricks. And but that's just how it goes. Now, as far as him getting angry and talking all that smack about Chael, like, for what, man? For what? There is no point. If it was for money and pay-per-view buys and setting up a fight, I get it. But when it's just because Masvidal's angry at him and he's airing it out on the internet, that doesn't sit right with me. I would want for my Jorge Masvidal to think that stuff's beneath him. There's no point in making a big stink. And aside from the sport, why are you so angry at another man? Or why are you talking about another man in that fashion? Because you're mad at him. Like, let's not do that. That's not a good look. You are the king of the streets, street Jesus, Jorge Masvidal. You don't need to talk about that man that way. And, how about you get into commentating or, what's the next thing? We want to see the next thing you're going to do. Not, oh, you're still doing this. So, yeah, I didn't like that.
Well, and I think for a lot of people, the beginning of the end for Jorge Masvidal, unfortunately, wasn't it the Usman fight when he took it on really short notice? And then Usman just basically was foot stomping him, the whole fight. And you could tell Masvidal wasn't ready. And a lot of people thought, well, this is the end for him. And I thought, well, he took this thing on short notice, And
True.
I think, though, unfortunately, that fight ended up doing him in because I think when that happened, even Dana White looked and said, this guy can't get it done anymore. and the stand and bang and all that stuff that he was able to do for so long just went out the door. And even though he walked around with the BMF belt and all that stuff, I think, unfortunately, people saw it as gimmicky. And I think that was another thing that may have torched his career. It's really hard to pinpoint where Masvidal falls in terms of MMA, because there's a lot of guys that are legends, but being a legend does not necessarily make you an all-time great. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's plenty of Super Bowl champions that aren't in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You know, so, but yes, and he could fall there. He could. And like you said, because of the exit, he just looked slow and way behind in his last fight. And I hated seeing that. And I chalked it up to short notice as well. But I also chalk it up to, like I said before, the game just seemed to
pass him by.
Move past him. Yep.
Yeah.
Because the game is always evolving, and it doesn't wait for anybody. So, you know, you can't keep doing the same old things like we saw Sean Strickland.
Right.
What he's doing, that's not sustainable to defend the belt over and over and over and over. John Jones has a great equalizer, wrestling, and his ability to create scenarios with what he's capable of, you know, and or we see the Chimaev or Makachev, you know, that wrestling is so dominant that you're going to have to deal with that now. And Masvidal can't deal with that. He had some of the best takedown defense ever for a long time until these Dagestanis came in and just flat out took over. So, you know, get with the times, you know, got to stay on that leading edge.
Really quick here, before we get off of here, UFC 299, O'Malley versus Vera 2. Who you taking in that?
I'm going to take O'Malley. Yeah. I think this is the best fight for him, hands down, to defend that title. Injury is what happened last time.
Right.
I think Cheeto will stand with him. It's going to be an exciting fight. But Dvalishvili, he does not want to see, O'Malley does not want to see that guy, because it's the styles that make the fights. Two strikers, O'Malley's got a chance. Dvalishvili versus O'Malley, well, and I said the same thing about Aljo. I thought he was going to wrestle Sean O'Malley for 5 rounds, and then he caught him in the first.
I was going to say, psych.
So, it's a great sport. It's a great sport. But I'm taking O'Malley over Cheeto in UFC 299.
Well, if O'Malley doesn't get cocky, because we've seen him in some fights where he could have easily finished somebody off, but he loves putting on that show. And there's been a couple of times where it's got the better of him. And, you know, this is a title defense. If I'm not mistaken, it's his first one, if I remember correctly. So I think O'Malley, to me, has got to stay focused. And I think, you know, the hair stuff and all that, that's cool, Brody. I'm with that. I think he's phenomenal on the microphone in terms of talking. I think he's very entertaining in that regard. And authenticity, I think he's really being himself. You know, we've talked about that a lot. But I just think that you take a couple of those fights where he should have easily knocked somebody out, but he just wants to keep juking and jiving and putting on a show. Bro, just put him away. There's nothing better than winning. You know what I mean? I mean, who gives a damn, you know, if you did all this extra or not? Just win the fight, bro. And I think that you're good. But that's me, though.
Especially now.
Well, yeah.
Especially now.
Well, I mean, and he's going to have a target on his head. You're the champion. You know?
Exactly.
If you give the wrong guy the second chance, game over. And I talk about this all the time, and you've heard me talk about it. Shark in the water smells blood. To me, the finisher separates himself from everybody else, the killer instinct. And when you have more of the flash and bravado in you versus the killer instinct, I just think eventually it catches up to you at the wrong time. But that's just me, though. That's just me. So
I agree with you.
Thank you. And I can't believe somebody agreed with me. That's crazy. It almost never happens on the internet. So, Austin, thank you once again for joining the program. Always a pleasure to have you on every single Friday. You are the man. Get some rest, dude. I know you're happy to be home, hanging out with the family and everything from your gym down in Texas and all that, man. A lot of road work for you, but get some rest, and we will talk to you again in a week, amigo.
Yes, sir. See you next Friday.
Yes, sir. All right, everybody. I'm Drew Duncan. He's Austin Ford, our MMA insider. I am Drew Duncan. The show's fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you're listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart, etc. Wherever you're listening, I am there. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. And if you don't want to pay for any more podcast subs, head on over to my YouTube channel, VRL Drew Duncan, the real Drew Duncan, where I do post entire episodes for free. Thank you once again to our MMA insider, Austin Ford, for joining the show. And our next guest, you have seen him fight in Bellator. He is the host of Fight Night with E-Man in Oklahoma City for the Sports Animal. He is Emmanuel Rivera, who's taken a little bit of time out of his busy schedule to speak with us today. Emmanuel, thank you so much for joining the program.
Absolutely, man. I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. You know what? And first of all, sir, you and I called the fights together, and I noticed that there was another guy, Blaine, who called the fights with us, and I saw you two in the middle of the ring after the fight taking a picture and tagging each other and stuff, but Drew Duncan was a ghost.
Well, when you say a ghost, that was because of you, right? You were gone. You were gone as soon as those headphones hit. And we didn't even think about taking a picture. And you see in the background, they're breaking down the stage, and we ended up deciding to take a picture. We're looking around for you, and yeah, you're right. You were a ghost. So.
Well, Scott looked like he commented. He said, "Man, I look like I've been on a 3-day bender," and I'm just like, "Probably." I mean,
right. I was like, "Were you not?"
Yeah.
He's like, "That's fair." That's fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, come on, man. The parking lot afterwards, bro, he was toast. For real, for real. Speaking of which, local fights, regional fights, to me, it's still a signature of MMA. Are you afraid, though, maybe, Emmanuel, that there is a little bit of, it's not quite what it should be in regional, or do you think the regional scene is improving and getting better with fans?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you see a lot of shows come and go, whether it's kickboxing, MMA, boxing, promoting, being a promoter and putting shows together and being a person that is a matchmaker. I mean, it's a tough job. I've had people approach me and say, you should get into promotion. You should get into matchmaking. And it's just not for me. I know how hard it is. So I respect the ones that do it. But the ones that do it here in Oklahoma, at least, I can speak for that. They are good promoters. Obviously some promoters get the bad rap, but the promoters in Oklahoma, including Scott Jones being one of them, they are very trustworthy promoters. You're always going to get paid, right? There's always a bad apple at some point, but those don't last long. The ones that are here, like Summer Seaborg, like Scott Jones, like Dylan Smith, I mean, these guys are stand-up people. So when you talk about the regional scene, you have to have the regional scene. In order to make it to the big show, you have to have a regional scene. You have to have a fighter that's building locally, get the fans on board, right? Being able to build that base around you to be able to take it to the big scene. Because when you get to the big scene, you have to have some people behind you. You have to have some fans. You got to have a little bit of hype. That's what the UFC and Bellator look for. So it's so important to have the local scene. but you also have to have these guys learning every single show. And Scott Jones at Husky Fat, you see every show gets better.
Well, and the trick to finding a really good fighter is making sure he's got really good, legitimate matchups. Because you and I, we've both seen this before, Emmanuel, where a local promoter will have a boy in his back pocket and just kind of feed him, for lack of a better term, tomato can fighters, right? And really beef up that record, make him look good for the next level. I will say this, with Scott Jones, I don't feel like I see that a whole hell of a lot, but you and I both know that that exists with other fight promoters. How do you get around that if you're a fighter who's got real aspirations?
Yeah, you got to find someone that's going to challenge you. And also, there's a little bit of that you can do at the beginning, right? But at some point, you got to start challenging yourself. So if you want to be your debut, be against a guy that is, 0-3 or what, I get it, right, as a debut. But there's also time and place for everything. So when you talk about someone's a young guy career coming up and he already has 3, 4, 5 fights, I mean, it's time to really give him a challenge. And if you have a good coach or a good mentor, I think that they will do that for you. They give you a good challenge. They give you someone that may give you that tough fight that you need, because you have to be able to experience that early. You don't want to experience that as a pro and be surprised by it, right? You want to be able to fight the toughest guys around you. And that's what I feel like I did. I never turned down a fight, right? So it's like some people pick and choose a little too much. I'm like, if I'm going to be the best, then I have to fight whoever is challenging me. And that's my mentality. And I think that obviously a coach or mentor is going to be there to kind of balance that out. But, yeah, you got to have tough fights, guys. You can't sit here and fight, like you said, tomato cans the whole time.
We're talking to Manuel Rivera. He is the host of Fight Night with E-Man for the Sports Animal down in Oklahoma City. You can hear him every Saturday, 5 to 6 on Central Standard Time. What separates Scott Jones' promotion, Emmanuel, from anything else that's out there? Because, like I mentioned earlier, you fought for Bellator, but you've also been in some other local promotions as well. What separates him from everybody else in your estimation?
Well, typically some other promotions, you have some problems with trying to get paid, or you're chasing promoters. And I haven't heard that at all from all these fighters. First of all, Husky Fat Promotions always looks out to help a nonprofit organization around here. So every show that he has put on, he has raised money for a nonprofit organization. And that should tell you a lot, because when you put on a show as a promoter, you don't make a lot of money, first of all, right? And then for the fact that Scott Jones actually gives that profit away to a nonprofit organization, then it says a lot about you, right? It says a lot about the fact that he doesn't care about the profit. He cares about helping the community. He cares about helping the fighters. And Scott Jones, although, he says that he's not a professional fighter or anything like that, but he has some experience. He's done some boxing matches. He knows what that's about. He knows what it's supposed to look like, what it's not supposed to look like. And we see that at the Husky Fat promotion shows.
Does Scott Jones even know who he is? I mean, seriously, Emmanuel. I mean, literally, there are few people that are walking around anywhere that nobody has ever had a negative thing to say about him. I've never in my life ever heard one negative thing about Scott Jones. Does he even know what kind of man he is, or is he just that humble, too humble to realize it?
He is a very humble guy, man. He's a husband. He's a father of daughters. He's a guy that, again, he doesn't care about the money necessarily. I think he's taken care of. I think that this is a great serious hobby for him that he takes serious, that he makes sure he knows the risks of the fighters that we're taking. He knows the back end, and he does very well organizing all of that. You saw this last show. If you guys didn't check out this last kickboxing show, 18 fights, right? Check it out on huskyfat.com. It's only like I think $6 or $15 to buy the pay-per-view. Very worth it. And excuse me, I had a sneeze. But every fight, like you said, is a high-level fight. It was very rare that you saw a very lopsided fight. You're going to get those once in a while, right? And we have, but it's they're very competitive. It's not a tomato can versus a guy that's undefeated, right? Scott Jones knows how to put fights together. He does all of it.
What's it going to take for Husky Fat and really kickboxing in general to get to the next level, Emmanuel? Because I'm going to tell you what, I've covered a lot of local MMA, and I've been able to look at people like, for instance, back home in Wichita and look at Stephen Wynn and go, that guy's going to the next level at some point, whether it's Bellator, UFC, whatever. He's going to be there, and now he's there. With kickboxing, I'm watching some of these guys fight, and I'm thinking to myself, if there was a next level here in the States, some of these guys would be ready. What is it going to take to get to that level, Emmanuel?
Well, I think it takes experience. I think it takes you putting on some shows, putting on some highlight videos, building your customer, your fan base, rather, around you, right? The only thing you can control is the people around you. So getting your sponsors behind you, getting the butts in the seats necessarily is what needs to happen. And then you start just winning, right? You go out there and having fun, start winning, and that's what will get you to the next level. But you also got to explore other promotions, right? You got to explore going out of state and maybe making a name for yourself in another region. And little by little, things will start happening. But you're right. Kickboxing, obviously boxing and MMA is more popular than kickboxing when it comes to mainstream, but it's starting to come up. One championship, a Glory, they're really starting to promote these kickboxers. And it's kind of hard to understand because you feel like kickboxing could and should be a lot more popular than it is. Right. It's boxing with kicks. That means it's boxing with baseball bats being thrown to the face and to the shin. It sounds like it should be more popular. And I think that everyone's doing a great job of bringing kickboxing to the light for these fighters to be able to kind of climb these ranks a little quicker and be more mainstream. That means more money, right? So I think that Scott Jones is a great base for that.
We're talking to Emmanuel Rivera. He is the host of Fight Night with E-Man down in Oklahoma City for the Sports Animal. His IG is L_Punisher MMA. Hall of Famers, Frankie Edgar, Silva, they just got inducted. Look, man, there's a difference, and I was just talking about this with Austin Ford, between being a legend and an all-time great. In your mind, what separated Edgar and Silva from not just being legends, but all-time greats, Emmanuel?
Well, you think about classic fights. I had a debate with Scott Jones. Actually, he came onto my show, and we talked about what criteria should include to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think it should be championships. I don't think it should just be championships. I think that people like Donald Cerrone should be in the Hall of Fame. I think that people that Dustin Poirier should be in the Hall of Fame. Justin Gaethje should be in the Hall of Fame. I think these people that necessarily have not gotten an undisputed championship should be in the Hall of Fame. Although, Frankie Edgar has been a great champion, but I think back to his wars that he's had, the comeback fights he's had. He was kind of branded the real life Rocky, right? The real life Rocky Balboa. He's from the same area, a guy that cannot be taken out. I'd say in the past, he was very hard to take out. He was a guy that was very durable, that would come back and win. And then Anderson Silva, you said Vanderlei Silva, right?
Correct.
Yeah, Vanderlei Silva, man. I mean, come on. You think the Pride days with Crow Cop, with Rampage, all those guys. I remember when those guys became part of the UFC, and that was such an exciting moment because we knew we were getting all these guys that were beasts, right? The guy that Rampage Jackson beat Chuck Liddell before Chuck Liddell was beaten in the UFC, right? So we knew that there was some competition coming from there. So Vanderlei Silva another legend, the axe murderer, and obviously Frankie Edgar, a guy that is known to be kind of the real life Rocky Balboa. So two guys that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Vanderlei Silva never reached a UFC championship, right? But I think that people like that should deserve to be in there.
Well, you know, and I had the chance to interview Hoist Gracie face to face, and I asked him, I said, look, do you miss when it was more underground, the Pride days with Don Fry and all that, or do you like it now that it's more universal and really is blowing up? And he told me that it was good for everybody because now the rules are universal and they're the same for everyone. One of the things that Austin and I just talked about, though, was MMA or combat sports in general becoming a fad. Do you worry that with the things like what we're seeing from King Ryan and all that, that we've gone that direction in combat sports where now it's all just a fad with fake beef and all that?
Yeah, you know, Ryan Garcia and some of these boxers, the reason why I got into mixed martial arts, I started as a boxer. And I think that these guys talking about coming over to the UFC and you know, Ryan Garcia, being very confident that he would beat someone like Sean O'Malley.
Right.
It's just delusional, man. I mean, in order for you to come and learn the ground game and the wrestling game and the grappling and the clinching and, you know, with the knees and the elbows, they just don't understand the intricacies that go into the training to be able to learn that and how long it takes. They've been dangerous men for a long time, but they just never felt the pressure of an MMA fighter, you know, and being able to compete in an all rules match. So I think that MMA is going to be obviously the new boxing. It's coming up. UFC does a great job of promoting their fighters and telling their stories. And boxing has kind of got away from that. They're doing a little bit better now. You see some of the promotions being able to cross promote and getting some of the bigger fights that we want now in boxing because they have to. They see UFC, they see MMA rising. So I think that it is a little bit of that.
You know, and speaking of which, we've seen people try to cross over one way or the other, especially from MMA to boxing, and it hasn't worked out very well. But recently, obviously, we've seen Clarissa Shields come over from boxing to MMA, and in one of her most recent interviews, she said that she thinks that she treats MMA basically like it's a street fight, and how she was a dog when she used to street fight and all that. Do you take that as somebody who did MMA and competed at Bellator with a little bit of an insult to that? Like, hey, look, we tried hard to make people know this isn't a glorified street fight, and now here you are as an outsider still basically calling it a street fight.
Yeah, well, coming from boxing where you don't have all the other rules, I'm sure to her it feels like that, right?
Right.
It feels like a street fight because you're having to worry about so many other things, not just a hand. You can kind of stand still. You can sit there and block. In MMA, you can't. If you stand still, you're getting taken down. You're getting kicked in the legs. You're getting kicked in the body. You're getting elbowed in the face if you're close. You don't have those gloves. So I can imagine how with the smaller gloves, with all the other parts to the mixed martial arts, it probably feels like a street fight to Clarissa Shields. But I don't take offense to it. I think that coming from a world-class athlete like her, I think that she's just telling the truth. I think she's just being honest of what it feels like to her. Now, we all know it's not. It's more technical, and it's a sport, right? A street fighter versus a MMA fighter, total different people. Street fighter is a guy that's just tough, that thinks he knows how to fight. An MMA fighter is a guy that's tough and knows that he knows how to fight. So that's the difference. I don't take offense to that coming from her. I think that the difference coming from boxing, the sweet science, to the chaos of MMA, probably makes us feel like that.
Do you think she's going to have a future in MMA? I mean, look, I was watching that fight on Saturday, and I thought to myself, if she was going up against somebody with even just a little more experience or an even slightly better ground game, she wouldn't have won that fight. Now, I will say this. Her overhand right is still just as vicious as ever. There's no denying that. And old girl had a chin because I'm telling you, 90% of the people catching that, they're out, period. But I think she needs to improve in her ground game. Do you see her being able to make a legitimate move in MMA?
It's tough for me to see that. It takes so long to train the ground game. Although she's a high-level athlete, I think that it's a little late, maybe to get started, especially at the level that she's wanting to compete. Obviously, like you said, she's fighting girls that are tough, but maybe not necessarily skilled to the level that you might expect going against her. But I think they're doing the right thing. They're introducing her to the sport. They're getting her some competition, but not necessarily unwinnable fights. I just don't see her fighting the cyborgs of the world, right? The Amanda Nunes of the world. I just don't see her competing against that, obviously. But I think that you got to give her props for coming over and trying it, right? Because the only thing we've seen in the past is like the James Toney. You remember that when James Toney fought Randy Couture? James Toney's talking a lot of smack, and he thought that that he had the grappling down just with a few months of training, and you saw that all that goes out the window when the pressure's on, and you're going against someone like Randy Couture. Didn't last long, Randy Couture was smart, right? Immediately took him down. He's like, I'm not going to play his game. And that's what I see if Clarissa Shields goes against some of the high-level MMA girls. So I think that's how it would end.
Well, and you brought it up. I'm sure you've seen the video where she claimed that during the sparring session with Cyborg that she beat her ass for the first couple of rounds and that she allowed her people to basically doctor that video, that Cyborg can't box, and if she was to get in the ring with her right now in the cage, that she would handle her. How do you see that fight legitimately going? Because like you say, look, if you're a true MMA person and you see a boxer come in there, I think your first and foremost thing is to get on top and just lay on somebody and see what they're really working with.
Yeah, I mean, if you put Cyborg in a straight, MMA match with Clarissa Shields, and Cyborg decides just to punch with her, then Clarissa Shields has a better chance, right? But if Cyborg comes out and uses mixed martial arts, then Clarissa Shields has no chance. But you've seen Cyborg come out, and she tried to do it with Amanda Nunes, where she just boxed her. Didn't go well for her. And I think that you got to respect Clarissa's hands, whether it's MMA gloves or boxing gloves. You can't sit there and box with her. If Cyborg decided to use all her weapons, then it would not go her way. Now, again, in sparring, you can talk about sparring all day, but when the pressure and the lights are on you and you got to perform, that's when it really matters, not in your relaxed environment in sparring. So I think that you got to kind of separate those.
Drew Duncan, the show is fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take your device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart, wherever you're listening, I am there. The YouTube channel is The Real Drew Duncan, the RL Drew Duncan, where I do post entire episodes for free. Once again, thank you to our MMA insider, Austin Ford, who joined us in the first hour and continuing to join us in the second hour. He is Emmanuel Rivera, host of Fight Night with E-Man on 98.1, the sports animal in Oklahoma City. You can listen to him every Saturday from 5 to 6 Central Standard Time by simply downloading the Sports Animal app or going to thesportsanimal.com. Emmanuel, thank you so much again for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us today.
Let's talk some mixed martial arts, brother.
My man. Speaking of which, McGregor and Chandler, does this fight happen?
And I think that fight is just like the memes I see. These guys are going to be old men when they fight each other. On a serious note, I think that it can happen this year, but Chandler is just sitting there waiting, and and he said he was going to. He said he was going to wait for McGregor and wait for him, and he wanted to bat as McGregor. McGregor, I think that it's a very, very big possibility that he can come back this year. It probably won't be till the end. Dana White was saying that maybe in the fall, the fall is when we started talking about this last year, even before. So it's kind of, I'm losing hope a little bit, but there's still that smudge of hope that I think that this year it can happen. If not, obviously Chandler will be very inactive, something that Chandler doesn't really do in his career. So how is that going to affect him? There's so many questions to this. I hope Dana White has something under his sleeve and announces it here in the next couple months.
Well, and, here's the thing. When I saw the initial video that McGregor put out on Twitter announcing that he was going to come back for fight week and fight Chandler, to me, it just seemed more like McGregor was playing around. And to me, he's doing more bodybuilding type stuff right now. He's admiring his body. He's hitting the gym hard. There's obviously the whole thing that has gone on with the alleged PED use and, that other company backing out and claiming that the UFC wanted to give McGregor special treatment and they didn't want any part of it. What say you about all this? This is kind of a sticky situation because I think the UFC has got to be very careful because anybody who's got an eye for sports at all might believe that McGregor's juicing to begin with.
Yeah, McGregor, whenever he had that horrible injury, I can't blame the guy for trying to heal if he was using something, right, out of competition. It's tough to blame him for that because when you break a bone like that, then, with the money that he has, he probably had access to some of the best stuff that you can get to heal. Right. I don't know much about that stuff, but I know that it'll probably make you heal faster. And the way that he came back and was walking pretty quickly after that makes me think that he probably got some help. Right. And then obviously his physique and all that, then we're probably thinking that he got some extra little help there. But now, if UFC is really going to be having that testing regimen still, then I don't think that that's a worry. I think that Chandler is a guy that will fight whoever, whenever, and he trusts the UFC is going to do the right thing and making sure that everyone is clean right now. But Paulo Costa has kind of plays with the whole secret juice thing, and so you have some people that are kind of playing on it. But all I'm saying is that they better not get caught if they do.
Well, and you're talking about the Dustin Poirier fight, obviously, right? Look, I think that fight is a lingering image right now among MMA fight fans because obviously since he's come back from the Mayweather fight, he hasn't done well. Khabib completely dominated him. Everybody's seen that video of him going, talk now, and McGregor's yelling at him, it's just business, So here we are now with McGregor being 1-4, 1-5 since his fight with Mayweather in the octagon. I think what has happened here is that McGregor may have lost some steam. Everybody says he's a big money fight. But I don't know that I believe that anymore, Emmanuel.
Well, he has the name still. He still has the anticipation. Is it the same pop as it was at the prime McGregor? Absolutely not, right? When you win, you add more to the stock. But you're right. He has not won in a while, right? So Cerrone, obviously the Cerrone fight was an exception there. He looked very good. I thought the Cerrone was going to be able to, put up more of a fight than that for sure. But McGregor was very accurate with his kicks, and he landed that. But you're right, he has not been busy. He has not won a fight in a while. And, all you can say about McGregor is that he still has the stock behind his name. Not the same, like I said, but he's not going to beat his own record with the pay-per-view sales, but he's definitely going to be one of the highest again. And I think if you stack a good card around him, that's fine. I just don't know that Chandler McGregor is the main event now. I just don't feel it. I think a co-main event with a good championship main event, I think would be good, but that's just my personal opinion. Some people are really hyped about McGregor coming back, and I'm just not one of them. I like to see him come back, but I think Chandler rather beats him.
Well, see, and I think that's a thing there, right? Because I feel like a lot of people think that Conor McGregor and John Jones and some of these other guys have just been getting way too many passes from Dana White and the UFC in general of being able to basically do whatever the hell they want to do. They come and they go as they please. Scott Jones, who we talked about earlier, said that John Jones has the UFC by the balls. So at what point do we draw that line? Because I don't know that Dana White is not above making McGregor a main event regardless of anything, but I love your idea. So how do you think fight fans would react to him being a co-main event as opposed to a main event?
I think that McGregor would fight for a main event. I think that he would try to figure something out for that. Now, when you say John Jones has the UFC by the balls, I think that he has shown that, right? They're independent contractors. We got to remember that. These guys aren't necessarily employees. They're independent contractors. So Dana White says these guys can do and say essentially whatever they want unless obviously Dana White disagrees with something and he's just able to cut him off. But he's going to pick and choose that. Not everyone with the same offenses are going to get cut. Does that make sense? So you're right. The Golden Boys, John Jones, Conor McGregor, right? These guys that are some of the money makers for UFC are definitely getting some passes. And we've seen that in the past, especially with John Jones. He's been in trouble so many times, but UFC still puts him on, right? They still support him. They still get behind him. They're still giving him another chance. You can look at it one way or the other. You can look at him like UFC's giving him some chances. They see something in him, or, hey, here's a money guy, right? And he will show up and fight. John Jones is the guy that will show up at a high level and fight anyone. And we've seen that. He's fought everyone and anyone. Besides that fight, remember whenever they changed the whole card for John Jones?
Right.
They moved it from like Vegas to like California, I believe, Los Angeles, something like that. And they made all the fighters travel, basically spend more money and have extra expenses to be able to move the whole card from Vegas to California because there were some problems. I mean, you see those things, and like with John Jones, it is. They see him as a big draw and a big partner to the company.
Well, money talks and BS walks. He is E-Man Emmanuel Rivera. He is the host of Fight Night on the Sports Animal 98.1 in Oklahoma City. You can listen to his program by going to thesportsanimal.com or simply by downloading the Sports Animal app. His show is every Saturday from 5 to 6 in OKC. Emmanuel, UFC 299 is on board with what I think is going to be a hell of a main event. Who do you like in that one? O'Malley taking on Vera. Who do you got, my man?
Man, I like O'Malley. I think that O'Malley has grown more, right, since that last fight with Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera, don't get me wrong, is a very durable, technical, dirty. And when I say dirty, I mean he just gets in there and he's a dog. He's not a dirty fighter. He's a guy that can bring the fight to Sean O'Malley and being able to hurt him. We've seen that already. But Sean O'Malley, I think that he's gotten better and better and better every single fight. His distance management, his speed, his reactions, his countering, his takedown defense, right? Now, can Marlon Vera use the same calf kicks to try to stop Sean O'Malley? That's the question. I think that's going to be big time. If I was Marlon Vera, I would certainly go to those calf kicks a lot at the very beginning and invest early against Sean O'Malley, because then you're gonna affect his movement and you're gonna possibly hurt him because he has had problems with his ankles in the past. So I feel like Marlon Vera's game plan is definitely gonna be something like that.
You know, and the thing that I've always said about Sean O'Malley is there's no question, Emmanuel, that he is one hell of a fighter. But this is something that I brought up a little bit ago with Austin Ford, and that is, to me, when I watch O'Malley, there are times, and you've heard me talk about this, obviously, when we announce fights, Shark in the Water that smells blood, he could have put some guys away. And instead, he chose to be a lot more flashy, a little more showboaty. Look, I putting on a show, but there's no bigger show than winning the fight. So if you're training or coaching Emmanuel or you're his corner man, what are you telling him when he gets like that? Because eventually it's going to cost him.
Yeah, I mean, Sean O'Malley is a guy that likes to put on a show regardless, but you got to draw a line. We've seen that with like Anderson Silva in the past, right? Too much showboating will get you knocked out. And Sean O'Malley, I think, will take this serious enough in the cage. Obviously, there's a lot of videos he's making beforehand. He's a good troll. You know, he's a guy that knows how to use the internet to kind of hype up a fight. He has the younger crowd behind him. He's playing to that. I think that he does a good job there. But I think that when he gets in the cage and he takes on someone that's beat him already, he will take things seriously. Now, as the fight goes and he gets his rhythm and his timing, he might play a little bit more, but I don't think you're going to see much of that against a guy that already has his number.
Why are we seeing this fight for 300, maybe even as a co-main? Is Sean O'Malley just too big to not be a co-main?
No, you know, we were asking ourselves that, like, 299 and 300 are both, to me, equally good cards. So, you know, 300 is a great card, but 299 is, I mean, you look at it, man. You know, Peter Yan versus Song Yadong, Gilbert Burns. You got MVP and Kevin Holland. I mean, there's some great fights. A lot of fight of the night contenders. I mean, throughout every fight of these can be fight of the night contenders, man. And you look at 300, a lot of high level fights. I don't know if I see, you know, fight of the night contenders on all those, but there's some high level fights for sure. But man, you know, I think that Sean O'Malley is a guy that maybe they wanted to put a great card at 299 as well and build something around him. Some people are saying, you know, that Sean O'Malley is main eventing, but they had to add a lot of great fighters under him because he can't be a main event. Now, he's not a Conor McGregor, right? He's not going to be a John Jones, the anticipation of John Jones coming back. There is some anticipation to this fight because, you know, his first loss was taken by Marlon Vera. But I think Sean O'Malley's on his way. He keeps winning. He keeps winning in spectacular fashion, like he beat Aljo. You know, you can't deny that he's going to be a big superstar.
UFC 300, Pereira versus Hill. Is that a big enough main event, you think, for the spectacular that Dana White promised?
Well, you know, when Dana White talks and he promises something spectacular, that's not the fight that you think, right? You're thinking maybe Amanda Nunes comes back and Cyborg, or, you know, even something like that would be cool. I don't know about main event, but, you know, when it comes to main event, it's when he says spectacular, you have your own standards, you have your own hopes. So I saw a thing where it says, Jamal Hill, I believe, said that he saw a comment and someone said, you guys would have been disappointed even if it was Jesus himself going against McGregor, right? So it's one of those things where Dana White promises something and you're as a human being, make up your own main event that think it's going to happen. And I think that Jamal Hill and Pereira would be a very, very great fight. I think that's going to be a knockout one way or another. And but it's not, you know, these aren't the biggest superstars in the UFC. Pereira might be. Jamal Hill still working his way, right, to be there. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the expectations were something else, but I think that's a great card.
Who do you got in that fight, Pereira or Hill?
I think I'm going to say Pereira. I think that Jamal Hill is very good as well, but I see Pereira being so good at the kicks. And I think Jamal Hill's boxing can be just fine with Pereira, but I think that Pereira's kicks will be the biggest difference. And Jamal Hill, you know, doesn't necessarily throw the kicks the same velocity as Pereira does, and the same, you know, the same technical, level, right, as Jamal or as Pereira would. So I think Jamal Hill's going to have a little trouble with the kicks. What about you? What do you have?
Me, I think, look, Pereira is kind of that upset guy, right? That's what he does. He wins fights that he shouldn't win. And I think this is, to me, in line with fights that he shouldn't win. So I like him to win. But, I'm 50-50 on it. But if I had to make a decision, I would say Pereira. It's just what he does. To me, he's, Muhammad Ali was a guy that was known for miracles. He lost to fighters that he should have never lost to, but he also beat fighters that he, in theory, had no chance against. When he fought Foreman, Foreman hadn't been past the third round with anybody and manhandled Joe Frazier. And people forget that, and Ali took him out in the 8th round. And I just, and look, I want everybody to understand, I am not calling Pereira Ali. It's not happening. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as an example of guys doing things that they shouldn't be able to do, Pereira, to me, that's been his whole career. He loses fights that he shouldn't, and he wins fights that he shouldn't. Yeah, it's just one of those things. So I think Pereira is sneaky on this one, even though a lot of people are backing you. They like Hill. I know Austin Ford, who's a trainer and got his own gym down in Texas and has done UFC and Bellator guys. He agrees with you too. So I don't know. I'm just some guy, man. I'm just some guy on a mic. We're talking to Emmanuel Rivera. He is the host of E-Man. Fight Night with E-Man, I should say, down in Oklahoma City, 98.1 WWLS, the sports animal, where he is on every Saturday from 5 to 6. You can listen at thesportsanimal.com. You can also download the app. And, of course, he is on Instagram as L_Punisher MMA. Really quick here, John Jones, there's getting a lot of pressure from Dana White, who says that he wants the winner of Jones and Miocic to fight Aspinall. Here's the thing. Those guys have to fight first. So does this thing happen or not, Emmanuel?
Absolutely. I think that there's definitely a lot better chance to be able to get that fight done than the McGregor fight. So John Jones, he's been touring. He's been going. You can see videos of him training in Thailand and other places, traveling. So I think that he's doing a little better. But when you're taking care of some injuries after surgery and things like that, then you got to take your time. You have a time to be able to get relief to start training, right? And then at that point, you got to get back into shape to where you can start your fight camp. So I think that fight happens probably in the fall, and you might see. You might see both fights this year, right? The John Jones, Miocic, and then turn around and have Tom Aspinall defend or unify rather the belt. So that would be fun, right? That's the fight I would probably really look forward to, is the Jones and Stipe fight. And then I feel like Jones will take Stipe out, and then we'll fight the young and hungry Tom Aspinall. And I think that will be one of his toughest challenges. So I think that we have a great year in the heavyweight division.
One of the things that I've talked about, though, over and over again over the course of my journalism career with the UFC and really MMA in general is, number one, you see divisions like this get held up by somebody, and then you have an interim champion. And I think for the casual fan, it makes things a lot more difficult. Do we just need to do away with the interim champion in MMA instead of always trying to unify belts?
Listen, I don't understand the unification. The interim belts. I don't understand the interim belts, man. I mean, I think that if the champ is injured, then, or whatever that looks like, if he's out for whatever reason, I think you just strip him. It's unfortunate. I mean, what is the difference between having an interim belt and having a fake champion wait around? I mean, we know who the number one contender is. We know who the best guy in the division is. I just don't understand. I think that we do need to get away from that and just be able to have just an undisputed champion. But obviously it has a different umph to it whenever you talk about, they can say for promotion, unifying the championship belts, right? You have two champions. One's the undisputed, one's the interim, meaning fake,
paper
for now, champion. So it's weird, but it sounds better when you're promoting it. So maybe that's the angle they're taking, obviously. But when it comes to just, thinking about the rankings, and I mean, come on, man, let's just keep that one champion or strip him and give it to the true champion that's active.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Emmanuel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us today. It was a true treat to have you on.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. I look forward to having you on my show tomorrow, 5 o'clock. You guys check out Drew on my show tomorrow. Download the Sports Animal app or check us out on thesportsanimal.com. We'll be talking more MMA, and I look forward to talking to you, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Duncan, the show's fired up, and we are live. I am brought to you in part by WBFR Block 50 Radio, which is online 24/7, 365 at block50radio.com. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Take a device to play Fired Up by Drew Duncan, iTunes, iHeart, etc. Wherever you're listening, I am there. I want to give a special thanks to my guest today, obviously Austin Ford, who joins us every Friday as our MMA insider, and of course Emmanuel Rivera, who is on the Sports Animal down in Oklahoma City, 98.1 WWLS. Go to thesportsanimal.com or download the Sports Animal app, and you can listen to his MMA show, Fight Night with E-Man, every Saturday from 5 to 6. Guys, hell of a weekend. Obviously, a lot of college basketball we're going to talk about come Monday. Some NBA we are going to talk about come Monday. And, of course, MMA. Guys, have a great weekend. Make sure and stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. Your local programming is next. Don't you dare touch that dial.